Discover how an inspiring maid transformed an amazing cotton baron's cold heart in just 30 days. Cora May bent over the family's laundry basket, her hands stained with the scent of sun-dried cotton, while her thoughts drifted to a classroom where she would be teaching. The decorative wall maps, the eager faces of children soaking in knowledge. These dreams flickered brightly like a lighthouse in a stormy sea of obligation. Each day was a blur of dust bunnies and silken sheets, the relentless grind of servitude feeding the vast wealth of the Davis family. Yet, beyond the confines of the property gates, the world sank deeper into tension. Jacob Davis passed her in icy silence, his demeanor as sharp as the stitched edges of his tailored suit. The air crackled, suffocating Cora's courage as he shot her dismissive glances. His world of cotton and money had molded him into something unfeeling. She worked tirelessly to support her family. Her own aspirations suffocated beneath the weight of late-night sewing and early-morning scrubbing. But aching bones felt paltry compared to the heartache of unfulfilled dreams. To inspire a future generation was her greatest calling. Just then, a part of her decided to resist. Could she even confront Jacob? The sneers she faced silently knotted in her stomach. Cora had no choice. Her paycheck was tied to this man's greed. Should she toe the line and protect her job, or take a stand against the injustices brewing in the cotton fields? The thought screamed deeply inside her, biting her conscience raw. The tension sparked between obligation and desire, loyalty and truth clawed at her soul. Could a mere maid hold the power of influence? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications, so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With each passing day, Cora burying her dreams deeper, sparks flickered in the dark corner of the Davis estate. She inadvertently caught Jacob's eye poring over worn-out books. The man masked in arrogance found solace in battered pages of classic literature, the irony laid thick. Yet, here she stood, compelled to confront the truth about the man behind the mask. The more she learned, the more he scrutinized her spirit. Their interactions became tea leaves swirling in boiling water, the tension growing palpable, each moment teetering on the edge of revelation or rejection. Yet within all this, a seismic shift was unreadable on Jacob's face, pushing Cora further into turmoil. Torn between realities, the risk of losing her job loomed larger daily. Would standing against oppression cost her everything? The thought of fighting fleeting whispers urged her on, the pulse quickening with each glimpse of his hardened silhouette. She would challenge him, yet a wave of dread would wash over her, fears of what such defiance might mean. The tension mounted, straining hearts between walls, one cautiously crafted to protect power, the other unwilling to be held down by it. As the days wore on, the stage was set for fateful confrontation, and the weight of their shared history loomed heavily. Cora's heart quaked, the urgency of moral courage against the icy steadfastness of a man shackled by privilege. The outcome danced mockingly close, despair tinged with the potential for hope, a hope she yearned for, yet feared more than anything. Would the fragile connection unveil humanity, or would it only highlight the unbridgeable chasm between them? The world spun around her, a storm gathering, catalyzing inevitable change, either a clash of ideals or the potential spark of a fusion she never dared imagine. Cora took a deep breath as she stood alone in the dimly lit laundry room, surrounded by the comforting scent of cotton and the weary hum of her thoughts. The daily routines had become a monotonous ritual, but today felt different. Today she struggled to shake off a growing determination that pressed against her chest, like a weight. The silence of the estate was unsettling, like a predator lying in wait, and for the first time she felt exposed and resolute. She recalled the stories she had read, a young teacher battling oppressive systems, molding young minds to challenge the status quo. A spark ignited within her. What if she was that courageous teacher? The idea felt ludicrous. After all, she was merely a maid employed by Jacob Davis. Ambition and circumstance had placed her in a servile role. Yet the contradiction of it all stirred her greater resolve. Could she challenge not only her own existence, but the very foundation of an unjust society? That afternoon, she found herself stretching the boundaries of her usual chores. As the afternoon sun poured through the windows, she seized her moment and ventured to the front yard, where she spotted Jacob sitting under an ancient oak, engrossed in one of the books she had seen him with before. Something about that image fueled her resolve. Here was a man crafted by privilege, yet captivated by the very words she had longed to impart to children. Cora hesitated, poised between her role and the unknown. Was it reckless to speak? Looming behind was the fear of retribution. Behind her stood her family, dependent on her continued employment. Yet, a new fire ignited, and the desire to confront the seemingly impervious facade of Jacob's arrogance surged. Using a deeper breath to cloak her apprehension, she approached him, the ground uneven beneath her feet, much like her resolve. "Mr. Davis," she ventured, her voice steady yet soft, not wanting to invoke the coldness he often exhibited. He looked up, irritation sparking in his eyes. Cora pressed on. "I noticed you've been reading. Literature has the power to reveal our common humanity, don't you think?" Her heart raced, a mix of hesitation and hope fluttering in her chest. Jacob's brow furrowed, and a guarded silence ensued. She felt the vulnerability of her position, a mere maid challenging a baron's understanding of life. But she refused to back down. "It can teach us more about each other than our titles ever will. Have you ever thought that perhaps we can't fully admire the beauty in the work if we don't understand the toil behind it?" The clock ticked in the silence, and Cora's pulse quickened. Jacob's eyes narrowed, studying her with an intensity she had only ever experienced from a distance. It felt as though the air thickened, not with anger, but with a perplexed intrigue, an eruption under the cold veneer he maintained. What would he say? Would he belittle her? Or would he engage? Feeling a burgeoning strength, Cora took a step closer, carefully articulating her thoughts. "You read about grand adventures and revolutionary minds. Could we afford to blind ourselves to the plight of those who work the very fields that feed your empire?" Her words poured from her heart, a tempest fueled by shame and the aching desire for change. Jacob's response came slowly. She saw a flicker of something. Was it acknowledgement or annoyance? A deep crevice of his identity threatened to split open if she pressed hard enough, yet there was no telling whether he would allow her a glimpse inside. As the shadows lengthened around them, the sacred moment suspended in time hung heavy with anticipation. Did she just open a door, or was she merely setting the stage for a backlash yet to come? The silence stretched, reeling her in with an urgency she could hardly fathom. Before she could question herself, the air shifted. "Do you think your voice matters?" Jacob finally spoke, a question loaded with challenge and curiosity. "More than you know," she asserted, a twinge of satisfaction weaving through her defiance. The moment surged, tethered between a potential awakening or a chilling rejection. However it unfolded, she sensed they were standing at the precipice of change. Either he would push her back or be drawn further into her world. Each heartbeat resonated with the possibility of transformation. Could moments like this redefine not just their relationship, but the world they both inhabited? This was just the beginning, with both standing in the balance of newfound potential. Yet a question lingered heavily on the breeze. What next choice would define her journey? The challenge had been issued, and now the stakes had risen. Would Jacob summon the courage to face the truth, or would he retreat behind his walls once more? Cora felt a ripple of tension rush through her as Jacob's question lingered in the air, his incredulous gaze splitting open the fabric of their silent battle. Her mind whirled, quickly assessing the gamble she had embraced. Each second felt elongated, unbearably heavy with possibility. "More than you know," she repeated, her tone unwavering. Yet deep down she questioned if her voice really did carry weight. Was it audacity or truth that propelled her? Past experiences compounded, mistakes, broken dreams, and quiet resignations swirled in her thoughts, weighing heavily against this newfound determination. Jacob's eyes narrowed, and for a moment she feared she had miscalculated. Had she crossed a line that could sever her family's fragile security? But then she recalled the courage she had summoned to even speak. This wasn't merely an act of defiance. It was her burgeoning hope. He leaned back, folding his arms as if trying to dissect her soul. "You think words can change our realities?" A spark ignited within her, fueled by their collective histories, their roles defined by shadows, labor, and legacy. "Yes," she replied, her voice firm, almost daring. "Words have changed the course of history. They've challenged tyrants and uplifted the oppressed. If you truly want to understand your stories, you have to connect to the vulnerabilities woven in them." His expression wavered, uncertainty flickering beneath the stony exterior. For a brief moment, she saw him not as the baron who sat on the towering pedestal of privilege, but as a man encased in an armor of expectations, both from society and from himself. The realization sent a jolt of solidarity through her. The world outside the estate continued to breathe, governed by the trivialities of life. But in this sacred space, time had suspended itself. She sought to exploit the opportunity, sensing this was more than just a disagreement. It was a chance to cultivate understanding. "What if you read about the lives of those who work in the fields?" She pressed on, her fervor alight. "Imagine the stories they could tell, the struggles, the dreams they hold, the revolutions brewing in their hearts. Your novels speak of adventure, but adventure also lies in empathy." Jacob's frown deepened, the complexity of her argument evidently feeling like an assault on his traditional perspectives. He shifted, as if destabilized by the confrontation. "You speak of empathy, but what do you know of my world?" "I may not have your privilege," Cora said, grounding her assertion, "but I am a witness to the struggle that exists because of it. The heartbeats and voices of those occupying the margins deserve to echo beyond the fields they toil in. Their labor nourishes your table. Do you not wish to hear them?" Silence enveloped them again, but this time it was less suffocating. In that quiet, Cora wondered if this moment would live in his memory like it did in hers. Would he even try to grasp the truth in her words? The stakes rose, bound not just to her future, but perhaps his as well. After a long pause, Jacob finally responded, "And if I do listen, what then? Am I supposed to suddenly embrace a revolution? Abandon my life?" "Not a revolution," she countered gently, "but an awakening, a way to reframe your reality, a way to allow your legacy to be one that transcends mere wealth." He seemed to retreat inward, wrestling with thoughts she could almost feel swirling around him. It presented a vulnerable clash. The pull between tradition and potential change mirrored in the shadows that danced in the fading sunlight. "Your words resonate deeper than you think." His voice was softer now, almost reluctant, and Cora felt the weight of the moment shift, electrifying the air. The balance had teetered toward engagement. Cora held his gaze, exhilaration tinged with wariness. In that echo of silence, she recognized a shift. She had forced him to reconsider his own narrative. Yet, uncertainty nagged at her. Would this lead to enlightenment, or would it instigate conflict? Are you willing to read more than just adventure? She probed, an invitation wrapped in challenge. Jacob considered, his eyes narrowing as though he were plucking the thoughts from his mind like fruit from a tree, reluctant to taste. Perhaps, he finally admitted, but I don't yet know if I can face what that means. Her heart fluttered. That admission spoke volumes. Change was a treacherous path, yet the question remained. Would Jacob take the first step? As they stood frozen in the moment, an unsettling thought arose within her. Had she merely placed herself on a tightrope of possibility? If he did embrace this awakening, what would it demand from her in return? The shadows of the yard stretched further, as if mirroring the vast unknown that lay ahead. Determination surged anew within her. This was a dialogue begun, but how far would it reach before reaching its inevitable conclusion? And in that suspended time, a new question loomed against the horizon. What would she uncover within herself if Jacob chose to walk with her into the light? The air in the estate felt charged with uncharted potential, a combination of apprehension and anticipation swirling around Cora and Jacob. Their eyes met, a mixture of challenge and curiosity flashing between them, hinting at the magnitude of the crossroads they found themselves at. This was not just about words anymore. It was about pathways and realities, each choice a distinct fork, leading to unknown destinations. Cora shifted slightly, the tension in her body coiling tighter. Yet every breath she took donned a layer of courage. Recognizing that what lay ahead would demand far more than verbal assertions, she felt a fiery resolve surge. She would need to transform their conversation into tangible actions, for it was clear that words alone wouldn't bridge the crevice between privilege and perspective. Determined to translate this dialogue into a curriculum of enlightenment, she began to strategize. Perhaps a reading list was born out of their discussion. Books exploring not just idyllic landscapes, but narratives steeped in the struggles of the downtrodden. But would Jacob embrace this? Would he sift through the words she had suggested, or would the weight of his upbringing imprison him still? Jacob, she began, her voice steady, but filled with an urgency she rarely exhibited. I can curate accounts that weave in the voices of the unheard. You might discover a world through them, one that has been right there, waiting for your recognition. A confrontation, as you pointed out, but also an awakening, a scholarly expedition into the real fabric of our society. He shifted again, the idea settling like dust on a forgotten shelf in his mind. Cora sensed an internal struggle within him. He was peering into a chasm, afraid to leap. The cultural constructs binding Jacob were nearly palpable, forged from years of familial expectations and social norms. Would he dare navigate the tumult that lay just beneath the veneer of his insulated existence? Curating stories of the oppressed, he echoed, the concept rolling off his tongue awkwardly. The idea seemed foreign, possibly threatening. Where would I even begin? What if I don't understand? Or worse, what if I fail to see their plights compared to my own? The self-doubt in Jacob's eyes inspired a flicker of empathy from Cora. She understood the suffocating power of privilege. It offered comfort, but often stifled awareness. She felt compelled to help him recognize that vulnerability was not synonymous with weakness. It's not about perfect understanding, Jacob. It's about the willingness to engage, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it feels like you're peeking into a mirror that reflects the unknown. He contemplated her words, his expression a mingling of uncertainty and intrigue. Cora leaned in slightly, her excitement bubbling just beneath the surface. There's an opportunity for you here, she urged, to dig deeper into who you are, beyond titles and fortunes. Let these stories transform your perspective. You too have something to gain from this awakening. Yet a shadow passed through the moment, a whisper of apprehension embedded in their exchange. What if Jacob resisted this mission? What if the transition became a storm, threatening their fragile bond? Cora steadied herself for whatever fallout this journey might spark. The path to understanding was littered with potential pitfalls. "Do you reckon you will try?" she ventured, searching his gaze for a flicker of commitment. The challenge ahead could either illuminate their path or tear it apart. Would Jacob be willing to embrace the uncertainty and allow the narratives to shape his character? He exhaled softly, shoulders slumping for a split second, an acknowledgement of his internal battle. If I start reading, what does that really mean? To me, to my family, to us? Cora felt her heart race, recognizing they were standing on the threshold of something monumental. A leap into learning might fracture the world he knew, but it could also construct a bridge to possibilities he'd never dared to dream of. "It means growth," she asserted confidently, "and in that growth, you might just find a way to redefine the legacy you wish to leave behind. Together, we can explore what lies beneath the surface of our roles." They lingered in that moment, a soft breeze pushing the boundaries of their conversation further. Would Jacob embrace this opportunity? What treasures would unfold in the depths of empathy and understanding? She realized with a shiver of anticipation that the stakes had never felt higher. If Jacob took this step, it would irrevocably change the fabric of their alliance and possibly reshape both their narratives. And with the possibilities stretching like the horizon before them, Cora sensed a tremor of her own awakening, fueling her onward. But deep within, a new dread brewed. The journey she envisioned might not just challenge Jacob's heart, but test her own with trials she hadn't yet foreseen. What awaited them in the pages of the stories yet to be told? Cora woke early, the sun barely cresting the rooftops. Today marked a significant turn. With the first orange rays illuminating her room, she felt the sharp edge of determination cutting through the fog of doubt. Her focus sharpened. This was no longer merely about Jacob. It was an exercise in self-discovery, as much for her as for him. The personal stakes had risen, forcing her to wrestle with the question of her own beliefs as she prepared to guide someone unraveling their core understanding of the world. Instead of devoting her morning to routine chores, she pulled out her worn notebook and thumbed through pages labeled with frantic ideas and intentions. Today, she would lay the groundwork for their journey together and transform it into an educational venture, one where compassion met courage, and where her own growth could intertwine with Jacob's. What if they could create a reading club, a safe haven for vibrant discussions? She imagined cozy gatherings where stories collided with insights, where she could frame the narratives not only as lessons for Jacob, but as reflections for herself. She started drafting a list of books that could serve as catalysts: The Color Purple, The Night Circus, and A People's History of the United States. Each title pulsated with promise, each author an opportunity for her and Jacob to dive deeper into shared consciousness. She pictured the evenings spent together, allowing discussions to bloom amidst the flicker of candlelight. Would they find synergy? Or would it simply expose more fractures between their worlds? After a quick breakfast, Cora created an outline for their inaugural discussion meeting, identifying thematic questions and goal-setting strategies. What was knowledge without a framework to contextualize its impact? She knew she needed to structure their conversations carefully to avoid the alienation that often accompanied privilege. Yet in her excitement, a creeping anxiety gnawed at her insides. What if Jacob rejected her ideas outright? What if he saw her enthusiasm as naivete? When she reached the estate later in the day, anticipation coursed through her, mingled with residual fear. She caught sight of Jacob in the garden, a serene space he often frequented to reflect. He appeared lost in thought, head bowed, hands planted in the earth. A momentary part of Cora wanted to recoil. Would he see the path of inquiry she was pouring her heart into as a burden rather than an opportunity? "Jacob!" She began cautiously, her voice resonating against the fresh morning air. His head lifted, and for a heartbeat, she witnessed clarity glimmer in his observant eyes. "I've been thinking about this journey we spoke of. I want to create a space for us to really delve into these stories, together." He regarded her with a mix of curiosity and skepticism, the firmness of familial loyalty fighting for dominance in his expression. Yet the hint of vulnerability reminded Cora that change could very well be nurtured from apprehension. "Are you suggesting a book club?" he asked, his brows furrowing slightly. "More than that," Cora forged ahead, her excitement bubbling. "A dialogue, a chance to engage with these narratives. You have the power to reshape perspectives, Jacob. Not just yours, but those around you. Think about it. A way for us to step outside the lanes we've been confined to for so long." Jacob paused, considering her proposition. Yet a quiet storm danced in the depths of his gaze. "But what if I don't fully grasp the weight of these stories? Or worse, what if I misunderstand their intentions?" Cora took a steady breath, her empathy guiding her through his trepidation. "Every reader finds their own understanding, Jacob. It's not about being right, it's about engaging and allowing it to challenge you. Your honest reactions will be the key to this journey." For a moment, the air between them thickened, opportunity hovering delicately like autumn leaves, inviting yet vulnerable. Would he choose to leap toward companionship in this exploration, or retreat into the solace of his privilege? She waited, heartsick over the impending weight of his answer. Suddenly, Jacob straightened, shadows dispersing from his countenance. "All right, Cora. Let's do it. I want to learn. But I won't dismiss my concerns either." Surprised yet heartened, Cora felt that this was not merely about initiating a project. It was an encounter rich with potential for transformation. Each book a stepping stone toward a deeper awareness. As they delved into uncharted territories of each other's minds, the horizon of their chosen path stretched wide, revealing both peril and promise. But as excitement coursed through her, Cora couldn't shake off a whisper of doubt. What if their discussions ignited more unrest than insight? What if Jacob uncovered truths that made their relationship unrecognizable? With the promise of their intellectual voyage looming, the real challenge awaited just beyond the turning pages. What unforeseen consequences would their explorations unearth, and how far would they both be willing to go to confront them together? Cora awoke the next morning with an insatiable curiosity coursing through her veins. The excitement of yesterday's conversation lingered like the crisp morning air, invigorating her spirit. She felt as though a new chapter had begun. Not just for Jacob, but for herself. With determination as her compass, she set out to solidify their literary journey, one carefully curated book at a time. As she wandered through the local library later that day, the vibrant smell of aged paper enveloped her, a reminder of the countless minds that had wandered these aisles before her. She slid her fingers along the spines of the books, searching for wisdom and stories that would resonate with Jacob's internal landscape. Her heart raced, and her breaths quickened. This was beyond just choosing titles. She was building a bridge between their lives, risking vulnerability by unveiling both hers and Jacob's truths. She selected The Color Purple, with its themes of resilience intersecting with love, a timeless battle against oppression she hoped would awaken empathy in Jacob. A people's history of the United States would challenge him to confront realities he likely overlooked. By the time she walked out, her arms were heavy with books, but her heart was light. In preparation for their first discussion, Cora spent hours crafting inquiries that would provoke thought rather than defensiveness. What did the characters sacrifice for their freedom? How do their struggles reflect societal constructs? She meticulously outlined each question with the aim of fostering a dialogue that invited authenticity, yet she wrestled with a nagging fear. Would Jacob perceive her efforts as patronizing? By evening, the air resonated with an electric mix of excitement and dread. The living room transformed into a haven. Books adorned the coffee table like a curated exhibit. She lit candles, their flickering flames casting a warm glow, yet casting shadows over her insecurities. Moments before Jacob's arrival, she questioned the magnitude of her endeavor. Would this lead to enlightenment or a painful fracture? When Jacob stepped into the room, his demeanor reflected curiosity, mingled with a hint of trepidation. Cora's heartbeat echoed in her ears. "Welcome to the first night of our exploration," she said, forcing a smile as warmth enveloped her. He took a seat, glancing at the books, and then looked up. "So, we're really doing this?" "Yes, we are." Her voice steadied, and she nodded, as if lighting the path with her conviction. "I've prepared a few questions to guide our discussion." "For a book club, this seems a bit serious," he remarked, a mix of intrigue and concern evident in his tone. "Seriousness is just a channel for understanding," she replied, leaning forward. "I believe we can challenge each other, and ourselves, through these narratives." As they delved into the first chapter of The Color Purple, Cora discovered a profound side of Jacob emerging, the buried layers of vulnerability expressed through his thoughtful hesitations. He shared confessions about societal norms, proclaiming them as lenses through which he'd been conditioned to view life. Cora held her breath, picking up on a tension that existed within him, a struggle between the person he had always been groomed to be and the one he was beginning to uncover. Their discussion flourished, veering from literary analysis to introspection. Jacob's initial wariness gradually shifted to an earnest contemplation, his discomfort blossoming into insights. Cora challenged him gently, guiding the conversation with deft questions designed to peel back preconceived notions. "Do you believe you truly understood the struggles these characters faced before tonight?" she asked, watching for the flicker of realization in his eyes. Jacob swallowed hard, a pause betraying his thoughts. "Not until now. I didn't see the parallels until it became personal." Judging by the fire igniting in him, Cora felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps this journey would not fracture their bond, but strengthen it instead. Yet that night wasn't without its challenges. Moments of defensiveness surfaced. When he brushed off systemic issues as irrelevant to modern life, Cora felt the weight of an ideological divide. Each encounter offered her a glimpse into his sheltered world, presenting both a barrier to understanding and an opportunity for connection. As the hour grew late and the candles flickered lower, a profound exhaustion settled over them both. They had unearthed deeper questions than either anticipated, but they were far from resolved. Cora marveled at how their discussions were raw and catalyzing, both a test to navigate through and a pathway toward growth. When Jacob finally stood to leave, a tension hung in the air like unturned pages. "I'm willing to dive deeper, Cora, but I need time to process all of this. What if I fail to grasp it?" "Getting it wrong is part of getting it right," she replied, her tone confident despite her inner turmoil. "You're learning to engage, and that's what matters most." Outside, the sky glimmered with stars, each one a reminder of the enormity of the truths they had begun to skim. Cora could sense that their journey was only just beginning. But as the door closed behind Jacob, she felt uneasiness settle like a stone in her stomach. Would he genuinely embrace this path, or would fear repulse him back to the safety of silence? What if his worst fears would come alive in these explorations, redefining not only how he saw the world, but also how he viewed her? The challenge of both personal and shared growth loomed ahead, and Cora braced herself for the truths waiting to unfurl. Cora paced the small confines of her living room, the flickering glow of candlelight casting playful shadows that danced along the walls. The remnants of their conversation still echoed in her mind, a cacophony of emotions blending excitement with anxiety. She had cracked open a door to a subject that could transform Jacob's perspective. An opportunity neither to be squandered nor rushed. Yet, with each step, doubt gnawed at her resolve. Was she simply a vessel for change, or was her own journey inextricably tied to this exploration? Days passed, each one unfolding into a motion of preparation. She threaded carefully through her own thoughts, reflecting on her dual role as guide and participant. Cora recognized that as much as she hoped Jacob would uncover parts of himself through this literary lens, she too was embarking on a mission of self-discovery. She emerged determined to be as vulnerable as she was asking him to be. Her mornings transitioned from idle routines to sessions filled with writing, notes brimming with thoughts not just about literature, but about the very nature of their relationship. Was she overstepping? Perhaps her desire to instigate change was rooted in a profound longing for understanding, an understanding that might not only affect Jacob, but reshape her own life. Each question she crafted felt like a tightrope walk of challenge and compassion. One evening, just as dusk settled, Cora grabbed her notes and headed to a local cafe where Jacob often met friends. She needed to observe him, not only as a budding scholar, but as a man grappling with the stirrings of awareness. Yet, as she entered, the energy within enveloped her, igniting fears of inadequacy. She noticed Jacob animatedly discussing baseball, a topic she struggled to connect with. Taking a deep breath, she approached their table. "Mind if I join you?" He looked up, surprise mingling with an unpositioned warmth. "Sure, I'd love that. We're talking about the Cubs and their chances this season." "Sports, huh? A nice break from heavy literature," she said, forcing a smile as she pulled a chair closer. As he spoke of home runs and strikeouts, Cora felt the tug-of-war within her. Here lay the man, veiled in layers she sought to unearth, causing her to question whether she really understood him at all. "Have you ever thought about how sports echo real-life struggles?" she ventured, nudging the conversation toward familiar territory. Jacob paused, studying her. "You mean like the pressure they face?" Cora seized the moment, fueled by her determination. "Exactly. Just like the characters in the books we've read, each with their own battles. What parallels do you see?" He considered this, though his brow knitted tight. "I guess competition drives people to push their limits. But it's not the same, is it?" "Why not?" Cora leaned in, her heart racing with urgency. "Pressure can be a catalyst for growth. Do we not face pressure in our own lives to conform or succeed?" Jacob sighed, running a hand through his hair, frustration bubbling close to the surface. "You're asking me to see things differently. I don't know if I can." There it was, the flicker of defensiveness that Cora had feared would surface. But rather than retreating, she pressed on. "You don't have to have all the answers. Sharing your thoughts is a discovery in itself. It's important." Time fell away as they navigated the conversation, each word a plank bridging uncertainty and clarity. Jacob relayed how he felt boxed into expectations, how the fear of disappointing others often silenced him. Cora's heart ached with recognition. She, too, struggled with the weight of others' perceptions. "I wish I could just break free," he admitted softly, eyes cast downward, revealing a vulnerability that stirred something deep within her. Cora took a leap into uncharted territory, her voice barely above a whisper. "What if this journey we're on together could help make that possible? Not just for you, but for me too." Jacob's gaze met hers, raw, unguarded, a potential shifting in the air. "But what if I fail again?" The question hung heavy, and Cora could feel the tension twining around them like vines. Would failure define him, or would it serve as a stepping stone to understanding? As the cafe buzzed around them, she realized they stood on the cusp of something significant, not just between them, but within themselves. Cora had uncovered a critical moment of empathy and connection, but the road ahead promised to be fraught with more intense confrontations. As they exchanged glances, filled with uncertainty and possibility, she felt a new wave of motivation surge within her, We won't know until we're willing to explore it together, she said, her voice steady. Jacob hesitated, but she could sense his resolve building against the fear that sought to inhibit him. Yet deeper challenges loomed ahead, and she sensed that their journey was only beginning. If they were to brave the night, what deeper unspoken truths awaited them? The real challenge would come as they grappled with the unknown of their pasts, testing the very fabric of their psyches. Cora sensed that the path to understanding could unearth buried secrets they weren't yet prepared to confront. Would love emerge unscathed from this exploration? Only time would tell. As they continued to lean into their fears, Cora wondered if they were ready for the revelations just beyond the horizon. Cora awoke the next morning to a cascade of sunlight filtering through her window, scattering her chaotic thoughts into sharper focus. She felt an electric pulse of determination coursing through her. Yesterday's conversation had ignited something within her that yearned for exploration. Jacob's vulnerabilities had become her own, a web of shared struggles and aspirations, knitting their fates closer together. However, vulnerability was a double-edged sword. Cora understood the gravity of what lay ahead. They would have to confront not only Jacob's fears but her own as well. This realization tugged at the corners of her mind. She grabbed her notebook, flipping through the scribbled notes on fear, change, and self-actualization, and began drafting questions that demanded honesty and reflection. She was ready to approach him once more, but this time with a solid plan, a roadmap through the emotional landscape they were about to traverse. As she prepared for her meeting with Jacob later that evening, her pulse quickened at the thought of their discussion. She meticulously curated her words, believing they carried an importance that echoed far beyond simple dialogue. This was her moment to not only be the guide, but to unearth layers within herself. At the cafe, Cora felt a palpable tension as she approached their usual table. Jacob had arrived early, his brows drawn together in thought as he absently stirred his drink. The moment she sat down, she noticed how his expression shifted. The walls he had built around his emotions were rising again. "How are you?" she asked, her voice laced with a warmth she hoped would break through. He offered a half-hearted smile, one that barely masked his underlying trepidation. "I've been thinking about what we talked about. It's complicated." Complicated often means there's something valuable hidden inside, Cora encouraged, her heart pounding with anticipation. What if digging too deep just turns up more pain? His voice was soft, but edged with frustration. Cora steadied herself, recognizing this hesitation as a crucial moment. But isn't living with that pain holding you back? What's the cost of keeping it buried? Jacob leaned back, crossing his arms. Protection, defensiveness. The chasm between them felt wider than before. "You talk about this journey like it's a piece of fiction. I don't see it that way." "Then let's not make it fiction. What if we approach this like a piece of literature, breaking it down to uncover its meaning?" Cora proposed, her voice unwavering. "Every character has a flaw, a moment of challenge. We all experience them. The difference is how we respond." He met her gaze, the uncertainty still present, but shifting slightly towards curiosity. "You make it sound so simple. Simple doesn't mean easy. It means facing what we fear and willingly asking, what can I learn from this?" Cora's determination felt like a buoy in the swirling waters of their conversation. The weight of her words hung in the air, and as she waited for his response, she reflected on her own struggles with inadequacy and self-doubt. She had fought her own battles, making choices that led her to this moment. It was time to share those experiences, not as an act of martyrdom, but as a way to foster authentic connection. "Jacob, I've stood where you are, afraid to confront my fears, afraid of failing. I was convinced failure was an end, not a lesson. But I learned that vulnerability leads to growth." Her voice cracked slightly, but she pressed on, fueled by honesty. You've already taken steps to acknowledge your fears. That's your power. Jacob shifted uncomfortably, glancing away as if grappling with the fabric of his thoughts. I want to believe that, but what if it doesn't work out? What if I don't have it in me? The rawness of his confession struck a chord within Cora. Her voice softened with empathy. It's okay to doubt, but imagine what could happen if we decide to explore this together. We might just surprise ourselves. A flicker of hope ignited in Jacob's eyes, battling with the shadows of his self-doubt. Cora could sense a tectonic shift occurring within him, an opening she desperately wanted to nurture. Just then, as the conversation reached a fragile crescendo, a loud crash from the kitchen broke the moment, jolting both of them back to reality. Cora's heart raced at the interruption, a reminder that chaos was often only a heartbeat away. Jacob started, but words failed him as he looked back towards the chaos, the door to honest conversation suddenly ajar, but now at risk of shutting once more. Let's take breaks during our discussions. Step outside if we need to, Cora offered, unwilling to let their momentum slip away. As they continued to talk, Cora understood that the heart of their exploration had truly begun. Each word shared a pebble cast into a pond that could create ripples of change. Yet, she felt the weight of Jacob's fear still looming over them, and the uncertainty that lay ahead became clearer. They were on the brink of confronting shadows that could likely fracture them if they weren't careful. Could they navigate through it without getting lost in the darkness? With every triumphant whisper of potential layered between them, Cora's resolve deepened. It was one thing to speak about growth and understanding. It was another to live it amidst the turmoil of unspoken truths. As they lingered at the cusp of their breakthroughs, Cora wondered, what deeper, more frightening revelations awaited just beyond the surface? Would they dare to dive into the depths, or would fear hold them hostage in their fragile connection? Cora awoke the following day with an unfamiliar calm that nestled in her chest, mingling with a simmering urge for growth. She had spent the night reflecting, not just on her conversation with Jacob, but on her own deeply buried insecurities, those things she had hidden even from herself. The clarity she sought felt closer than it had before, like the final puzzle piece that might unlock something profound. Fueled by this newfound resolve, she returned to her notebook, sketching out the emotional landscape she hoped to navigate with Jacob. Exploring past traumas was daunting. She wouldn't shy away from her own shadows, but rather incorporate them into their dialogues. Each line she wrote reinforced her belief that confronting one's fears, both his and hers, could be a path to rediscovery. When the moment came to meet Jacob again, her heart raced, not from fear, but from anticipation. With every step toward the cafe, she reminded herself that honesty and vulnerability could become the bridge to deeper understanding. The world felt charged with possibilities. As she settled into their usual spot, Jacob arrived, his expression a mix of apprehension and cautious curiosity. His eyes darted toward her, almost as if searching for a safe harbor amidst the turbulence they had started. "Hey, how did you sleep?" he asked, an olive branch wrapped in uncertainty. "Surprisingly well," Cora replied, gathering her thoughts. "Last night's conversation got me thinking about our strengths and weaknesses. Instead of just facing fears, I think we should explore what makes us resilient." Jacob raised an eyebrow, the wheels visibly turning in his mind. Resilience? How can I focus on that when I'm still in this fog of doubt? "Because resilience is built in the fog," Cora asserted, suddenly aware of the urgency in her voice. "It's made of those tiny brave steps we take when uncertainty looms, like starting to acknowledge our scars instead of hiding them." "I don't really talk about scars," he mumbled, glancing away, a curtain of vulnerability drawn across his features. "Then let's begin with the simple things. What are yours?" Cora pressed gently, fully aware that pushing too hard might retreat him into silence. He hesitated, the silence inflating between them. I guess I've always struggled with feeling enough. Like I have to prove my worth through achievement. Whenever I fail to meet those expectations, it eats at me. The weight of Jacob's words resonated within Cora. That's an incredibly brave admission. I can relate. It's like fighting against a ghost in the machine of our lives. He offered a slight nod, processing her words. Yeah, but how do you break free from it? Cora reached into her notebook, revealing her hand-drawn diagram that visualized the cycle of fear, struggle, and ultimately, growth. Each cycle included vulnerability as a pivotal entry point. We break the cycle by daring to feel our way through it, instead of just thinking. What if we created a plan to support each other in our journey? And how would that work? He asked, skepticism drifting through his voice. We set small, achievable goals conscious of our vulnerabilities, Cora explained. We share those goals, ensuring accountability. This way, our words transform from shallow promises into actions that reflect our commitment to growth. Jacob's brow furrowed, but a flicker of dare sparked in his eyes. What's your vulnerability, then? I probably shouldn't be the only one laying my cards out on the table. The challenge rang in the air, a test of her resolve. Cora inhaled deeply, knowing this moment could reshape her narrative. I struggle with feeling competent in my career. Every time I push for growth, a voice whispers that I'm not enough, that I'll fail. But I've learned that acknowledging those feelings empowers me to move past them. Jacob seemed to absorb her admission, the atmosphere charged with new tension. How do you live with it? By understanding that failure can serve as a teacher rather than a destination, Cora said, emboldened by her own reflections. If we can embrace those lessons together, we stand a better chance of transforming our fears. Jacob was silent for a while, allowing her words to sink in. She watched as his defenses began to crack, each fissure revealing a part of him that remained unseen. Yet just as hope began to bloom in that space, Cora's phone vibrated violently on the table, breaking the moment. As she glanced at the screen, her heart sank. An urgent message from her boss reeked of impending turmoil at work, an overwhelming reminder that professional growth was as fraught as their personal conversations. Sorry, I need to take this, she muttered, standing abruptly, feeling the very threads of their foundational dialogue begin to unravel. The sense of connectedness they had cultivated threatened to dissolve as responsibilities encroached. But in that instant, her mind raced. How could she harness this growing tension and transform it into momentum for her journey, as well as for Jacob's? As she stepped outside to address the professional chaos, she wondered whether they could reclaim their narrative after the disruption. Could they rise stronger from this moment? Or would the urgent demands of her job further distance them from confronting their vulnerabilities? Would they be able to meet again at the same table, this time under more favorable circumstances? Cora returned to the cafe, her heart heavy but charged with purpose. The conversation had shifted. The charged atmosphere between them now felt like an open field, ripe for exploration. She could see it in Jacob's eyes, the curiosity melded with apprehension, a storm gathering within him. They had both cracked the delicate surface of their vulnerabilities, yet there was so much more to uncover. Sorry about that, she began, sliding into her seat, determined to recapture the momentum they had built. This journey matters more than my obligations at work. Let's take this moment to really dig deep. Jacob nodded, still caught in the swirling minutiae of their last dialogue, his brow furrowing in thought. You're right. I think we were onto something. Talking about our scars, it's been an eye-opener. Cora seized the opportunity. Tell me more. What do those scars look like for you? When you think of resilience, what comes to mind? I've always felt like I have to live up to my family's expectations, he confessed, his voice steady, despite the weight of his words. That fear of failing has always been a heavy load, limiting how I see myself. His admission echoed with Cora's own struggles. She felt a kinship growing, a bond of shared fears threading them closer together. We're each carrying burdens shaped by others' expectations, but what if we learn to redefine those expectations for ourselves? Jacob met her gaze, a flicker of understanding igniting within him. Like creating our own benchmarks? Those that actually resonate with who we are rather than who others want us to be? Exactly. Cora felt the energy shift. What would your benchmarks look like? I've started writing down my goals, integrating both personal and professional aspects. It's about making them tangible and breaking through the mental barriers that hold us back. Jacob leaned back, deep in thought. That might actually work. I've been so focused on expectations that I've neglected my own desires. It's like I've tailored my life around other people's dreams. Cora felt a pulse of hope in the conversation. What if we made a pact? Let's each write down 3 goals we want to achieve. Goals that speak directly to our experiences, successes we want to embrace no matter how small. He hesitated, contemplating the weight of the request. Just 3? That seems simple enough, but still hard. Don't underestimate the power of simplicity, Jacob. Sometimes the smaller steps are what prepare us for the leaps ahead. Cora reassured him, her voice warm and inviting. This is about exploring who you are amid the chaos. After a moment, Jacob finally nodded. Okay, let's do it. I'd like to start with understanding my passions better. Maybe dive into that courage you spoke about, facing the discomfort and seeing what lies underneath. Cora felt joy stir within her. That's a fantastic start. And for me, I want to focus on my growth as a teacher, finding ways to influence lives beyond what's expected of me. As they jotted down their goals, the cafe faded away, the surrounding noises blurring into white noise as they built a cocoon of creativity. Both were threaded together by a sense of urgency. This was a significant breakthrough. I should have asked you this sooner, Jacob said, a grin emerging on his face. When do we start? I mean, the journey of really holding ourselves accountable? Right now, Cora responded without hesitation. Let's check in with each other every week to share our progress. We'll celebrate victories, no matter how small, and even strategize when challenges arise. Jacob's demeanor transformed, crackling with newfound resolve. Let's make it a point to remember this moment, when we chose to design our own futures rather than inherit expectations. As they sealed the pact, Cora felt a rush of confidence course through her. She had taken a bold step, not only for Jacob, but also for herself. Together they were navigating the uncharted waters of resilience. Days turned to weeks, and with each check-in, Cora witnessed profound change in Jacob. He embraced the literature that served as a mirror for his life. The characters became catalysts for his growth. In return, he encouraged her to redefine her role as an educator, helping her realize that the heart of teaching lay in inspiring others through authenticity. One particularly enriching conversation took place at their usual table. It simmered with electricity as Jacob revealed his plan to host a discussion group in the community, inviting others to exchange insights from the same books they had explored together. It's about time I shared what I've learned. Why should growing only happen in isolation? Cora beamed. That's brilliant. You're taking everything you've unearthed and extending it beyond yourself. And you, he added, have become an indispensable part of that journey. I've seen what genuine passion does, not only in literature, but in life. With each exchange, their connection deepened. They discussed dreams, desires, and fears, as if navigating an ever-evolving landscape, those details now mapped out and embraced rather than buried. That crucial moment came when they stood face to face, finally confronting the vulnerability that bound them. Jacob broke the silence, a decisive glint in his eye. Cora, this transformation, we've both changed. I'm ready to define who I want to be, Not just for me, but for us. You inspire me. Cora felt a tremor of exhilaration rush through her. I want us to continue walking this path together. We'll overcome the shadows as partners in this journey. In that heartfelt exchange, a powerful realization crystallized. Their connection was more than a mere friendship. It had become a partnership based on mutual growth and genuine respect. They had cultivated a safe space for vulnerability, turning what had once been a turbulent relationship of power into a tapestry woven with empathy, courage, and resilience. As they ventured into this new chapter, Cora stood taller, proudly cultivating not only her aspirations, but also blurring lines with Jacob's own path. They had become unyielding forces, driving each other toward profound discoveries about life and the truths they had yet to fully embrace. And in that shimmering moment of clarity, Cora knew they were ready for the next horizon, a future defined not by the shadows of their pasts, but by the enlightening possibilities that lay ahead. Now is the time to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. You need to subscribe now. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help our stories reach more people. Comment your thoughts and theories about this finale, and share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share. True fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of strengthening our community through support. Let's grow together.